Hello, everyone, and welcome to EDIBON International. My name is Carlos, and I will be hosting today this webinar dedicated to fuel cells. I'm going to introduce myself. My name is Carlos, like I said before, Carlos Leras. I am the United States and Canada sales manager for EDIBON International and EDIBON USA. So, that being said, um, first of all, I would like to thank you all for joining us and taking some part of your time to connect and learn a little bit about our units, which is in this case would be the EC5C unit. It's our fuel cell. And we're going to be covering this webinar in different stages. So let's say that we first, before we get into the process of what a fuel cell is and what it does, I think the most important thing would be to cover some basic concepts. I'm not going to get too much into details because I know some of you on the other side of the screens are very well known professors, and you might have known more than me about this. But I just want to cover a few, for those of you who are not familiar with these type of processes, well, just a few concepts. Then we're going to talk a little bit about the process of the unit, about the process of the fuel cell, what it does, and what exactly we will expect from it, and the result, what we can get from it. And then we're going to cover a little bit what it is this is for, which is talk about the unit, the structure, the configuration of the unit, uh, the different elements that are built in our units. And last but not least, we were going to talk about the SCADA software, which is what the computer control unit, the SCADA software can provide. In this case, the system can be all parameters, all sensor readings can be read, but not only read, they can also be saved and shared with students at the end of the class. So you can get all data in real time, but we're going to talk about this later when we get into the SCADA software. So, first of all, let's cover a few basic concepts. So, first of all, we need to understand what hydrogen is. Hydrogen, in this case, is a gas. So, it is labeled as H2. Okay, so we're going to be talking about hydrogen. We're going to be talking about oxygen, which is O. And then we're going to be talking about H2O, which is water. Okay, so we need to know this very clear. So, H2O and H2O, which is water. So hydrogen, oxygen, and water. So H2O means that two molecules of hydrogen combined with one of oxygen, then we have water. Okay. That being said, so that's been pretty clear. Let's talk about the PEM. What is PEM? It's a proton exchange membrane. So we're going to talk about this process in a few minutes. That it is important for you to understand what PEM means, or PEM that we call it in the educational field. Okay. Um, there's another thing which is important for you to know. We're going to be talking about anode and cathode. Okay. So when we talk about the process, there's some detail which is important about this process, that it is not as the same or as equal as in the electrolyte process. Okay. Or in the electrolysis, I'm sorry. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about the process right now, which is I'm going to be make my best effort for you to understand, you who are not familiar with this type of technology. First, for you to know is that this system or a fuel cell requires an electrochemical process. Okay, so this electrochemical process is what is going to be going on into the cell. So the cell is an element that requires, or it is structured by, on the left hand side we have an anode plate, then we have a membrane, and on the right hand side, I'm saying on the right hand side, if you stand in front of the cell, on the right hand side you will find a cathode plate. So you have anode plate, membrane, cathode plate. So on the left hand side, that's where the gas or the hydrogen will go and fill into the cell. It will go directly through the left hand side, which is the anode. When this hydrogen goes in, it will go through a process of oxidation. So it will oxidize. Once it's oxidized, it will liberate two electrons, okay? And it will remain with two protons. So for you to understand, we have the membrane right in the middle, and the electrons cannot go through that membrane, but the protons can. So they will go through the membrane and they will pass to the right hand side where the cathode is located. Okay, so we have like a sort of a going through from the protons, but the electrons will remain there. But what do we do with these electrons? We create some sort of a bridge, we call them bridge by a cable, that combines or that bypasses the membrane located in the center, and we can connect the anode with the cathode. And we make those electrons pass through that wire from one side to the other. Okay? So that displacement of electrons create energy, creates electricity. If we plant a light bulb in that bridge where the electrons are moving from one side to the other, that will create electricity. Okay? What happened when those electrons goes on the other side and they meet again with the previous protons that were going through the membrane? Well, they will combine with the oxygen that is coming from the right hand side. So we're filling hydrogen on the anode side, and we're filling with oxygen on the cathode side. So for you to understand, once the movement of the electrons and the protons are on the cathode side, they will combine with the O2, creating H2O, which is water. This water obviously is going in through a high temperature process because of all the chemical process that we've been talking about. So this um, temperature rise will create vapors, and that's the exactly what we are going to release, or from the exhaust of the cells we're going to get water, or simply vapor, which is water in higher temperature which has been evaporated. Okay, so that's being said, we now understand what that electricity comes from by separating, by a process of oxidation, these electrons from protons, and how they move around bypassing the membrane located in the center. Okay, I hope that makes it easy for you to understand. Please, if you have any questions, just write it down. We do have a Q&A area for questions and answer. Feel free to do so. And then one of my colleagues will get back to you and answer all the questions that you might have related with this system. Okay. Now that we talk about the process, what do we do with that energy? Well, with that energy, we can, according to the type of cells, because we can combine different groups of cells, and that those are called stacks. The more stacks, the bigger the cells, the more energy or the more electricity I can provide, or I can create by this electrochemical process. So let's now focus up on this unit, which is the EC5C unit. This is the EDIBON unit to replicate or to simulate an industrial fuel cell. So this unit will require obviously a hydrogen gas inlet. There are two ways. In this case, you could either place a bottle, hydrogen bottle right here, through a regulator that can be connected directly to the unit to provide the proper amount of H2, which is hydrogen. Or in this case, like we do have here in our labs, we normally have the H2 line directed, provided to our lab. So I do happen to have this unit connected directly to our system, or to our hydrogen connection here in the lab. So we do have a 12 battery, pretty simple, similar to the one, smaller than the ones that we have in a car, but we do have a 12 battery right here located in our system. Our system also has a, for safety measurements, remember, safety reasons, remember these units are meant for laboratories and for teaching. Therefore, we do have a safety hydrogen sensor emergency device that it's like an alarm. It will give us a gas detector. It will give us an alarm, a sound alarm, and we can also see that information on the SCADA software. If something goes wrong, if there's a leak of gas somehow in the system, it can be detected, and it can be properly, shut valves and just make sure that everything is working in the safety conditions. That oxygen I'm sorry, not oxygen. That hydrogen that is coming in will go through a pressure regulator. Okay, so we have a pressure regulator here that will go through a flow meter, which is located right here on the top, and that can be also regulated. We can regulate the flow of the hydrogen that is going into the system. Okay, if we follow that this pipe, we're getting into, and then we're gonna make a close up for you to understand and see this in a little bit in a closer position. Okay, this is a solenoid valve that it will open and close accordingly, depending on if you want to shut the system or leave it on or leave it open. And then from there, it goes into a um, pressure sensor right here, and pressure sensor and regulator. Okay, so that's the inlet of the hydrogen. Like I said before, it comes from the left. So we have here the inlet to our cell stack. So this is a stack. In this unit, precisely, we have 24 cells that are packed, creating this stack, which is located right here. And the most important thing, that the maximum amount of power that we can create with this unit is 100 watts. Okay, 100 watts is meant for that. On the back, we do have a fan, okay, an electric fan that will create not only maintain the proper temperature of working conditions, but at the same time, it will allow the recirculation of air, oxygen that might be going inside this block. Okay, so now we pretty much understand what the unit is. This small um, block that you see here, that you will see better in detail when I make the close up. So it also has a temperature sensor located, so we can monitor the temperature that is going on, what exactly is going on inside the cell pack or the cell stack. Okay, so let me show you real quick before we continue. Let me make a close up for you to understand a little bit how this is made. Then you can see in detail all of the different elements. Unfortunately, you cannot see the solenoid valve, which is on the back. Oh yeah, maybe you can see it there on the top right. Okay, and there you have a little better detail of how the 24 cell stack is structure. And you can see there that on the right side you have like a red and black knob. Well, that's the connection to our battery, 12-volt battery. Okay, so let's go back here to what the unit pretty much is. As you can see, you can have an idea of the size, because apart from the main unit, you will be required, and we're going to be talking about this in a few seconds. You're gonna be required of a space also for the interface box and the obviously the load regulator and the computer. Okay, so if you want more detailed info here, we can check on our interface box. As you can see on the left hand side, you have all the connectors for the sensors that are located in the main unit. One of the most important ones are the sensors dedicated for the voltage and amperage value. That being said, is pretty much the current that we are acquiring from this electrochemical process, um, from the fuel cell. So ST1, ST2, those are pretty much the sensors that I was, located. One of them inside the cell stack. The other one is located into prior on the hydrogen pipe prior to getting into the cell stack. And then you have the flow sensor, for you can understand pretty much how much hydrogen we're sending into the stack. And that it is pretty much what we have here. We can replicate here. You have diagram where you can pretty much identify all of the different elements from our unit, but here in a simpler way without following, wires and etc. Let's go back to the main um, main system. So we have the main unit, interface box, and the load regulator. As you can see, I'm standing next to the unit, so you have an idea of how big it is. It is not really difficult to manipulate. This unit is easy to carry. I can move it around just one person or maybe two people can move it around from one place to another. It is important for you to understand that when you purchase this unit, you might require, depending on the type of, we can also provide the bottle. However, you can also provide get yourself, or we can also provide you with the electrolyzer meant for recharging the bottles. Okay, like I said before, we don't require this in this moment. We don't have the bottle connected because we have a proper direct connection to our system from our lab. Okay, through the hose providing H2. Okay, now we're going to talk a little bit about, now that we cover pretty much the unit and the process and the main concept, which are like this. Like I said before, I don't want to get too much into technical stuff because you know more than me about this. Some of the professors that I have now connected. Let's talk a little bit about the SCADA software, and this is very important because there's a lot of information you can get from it. There's a lot of things that you can do with that information. We're going to cover that real quick. I'm just going to make a zoom to that particular software or the screen for you to understand how it works and what it does. Okay, I hope you get to see what is here in the software. There's a red, blinking red signal right there under SWV, which is voltage. That means that we're getting 0 right now, but we're gonna solve that issue right away. Okay, the most important thing for you to understand is try to try to identify the locations of the things. On the left hand side, you will have calibrate. Left top hand side, you will see calibration, save data, start, stop. Okay, so if you this unit is provided with a calibration manual. You will have access to all the sensors that are located in the unit, and then you can set them up to gain an offset factory reset. Okay, like you do with your cell phone. It's pretty much the same. All you need to do is just access the calibration system or the calibration screen, and then you can select the type of sensors that you want to recalibrate and set them back to factory reset. Okay, they will be set to those range, to the range in which they should work as factory. If you take a look in the center, well, you have a diagram pretty much the same as you saw previously on the interface box. Okay, on the right hand side, top right hand side, you have the sensors, in which in this case you have the ST1, ST2, which are temperature sensors. You have SC1, which happens to be a flow sensor for the H2, which is hydrogen. And then you have the SP1, which is a pressure sensor. SWV1, which is a voltage that we can get, after the electrochemical process is, creating all this energy. We can measure the voltage and also the amperage. As you can see, there's a variation. It varies according to how much load we're putting in the system. Okay. The sensor plot, as you can see on the left low hand side, you will have also the group of sensors that you can click on them. And as you can see, they're circled with different colors. Depending on which sensor you are clicking on, you will have access to the graphic. Okay, so you will see in the graphic, in this case, you're seeing in blue, purple, and you have the values and pretty much a variation accordingly. If we start, increasing the load, decreasing the load, obviously these values will change. Same thing with temperature. Okay, and same thing in the case of voltage and amperage. Okay, so you can pretty much get all that information here on the blood, on the graph. If you click on save data, which I'm not going to do right now because otherwise we will exit the not really exit, but we will pretty much get into a different screen. Okay, what it does in save data is that you can, we can select the type of, the time in which you want to save that data. That data, once you decide what you want to save, the entire information of all the sensors will be sent to a CSV, CSV format, and that would be Excel. So you can get that info from Excel, you can filter it, you can share it with the students, and they can also create additional graphics apart from the ones you see here on the plot. Okay, so we have calibration manual that will be provided with this unit, in which, in case you notice or you have the assumption or you test the sensors and you see they're out of calibration. Okay, here we have gone into save data. As you can see here, we have checked on every 5 seconds. So you will see a blinking green light here uh, under data. Okay, that means that when the blink light goes on, you are getting that particular reading saved into Excel sheet. That Excel sheet, like I said before, you can save into your computer. You can select which folder you want to save it into, and you can later share that information with students. Okay, for future graphics or future evaluation or any type of homework you want to send them to do. Okay, so um, it is very important for you to understand that two things. Okay, I'm gonna go back to the main screen. If you have any questions related with the SCADA software, please do not hesitate to contact me or any of our colleagues here in the company. So we'll be more than happy to answer all your questions. Okay, it is very important, the pros and cons. This is a very green system, as you can understand. All the exhaust will be just H2O, which is water, which is vapor. Okay, so mainly it is a no pollutant unit, but you have to understand that you will require H2, which is hydrogen, and hydrogen sometimes it is very expensive. Hydrogen, most of the time, is a very delicate gas to manipulate. So you have to be very careful when using this type of storing this type of gas. And pros and cons, okay? The pros, obviously, you will have no pollution on the exhaust. Uh, the system, as you can see, creates electricity in a very clean or green way. But where does the hydrogen comes from? Normally from fossil um, fuels, and that's one of the things that you will require a huge, in order to storage, a decent amount of H2 to either make an industrial process or maybe in an automotive field. You will require a huge amount of hydrogen to make that system work. That being said, it's a very expensive system if you want to make it industrial. I know there are a whole bunch of companies right now working on it, trying to develop a better technologies in order to squeeze down the size, to compress, and to make it safer to handle. Okay. However, the main purpose of this unit is to teach students the process, the basics, understanding, and the type of information you're going to get from it by provided by all the sensors that are attached in the system. Um, I've been asked several times if these sensors can be modified or can be, manipulated in the system. Well, no, not in this case. That would be a customized system. There's another version of this. If you don't want a computer control unit because you consider it expensive or anything out of your budget, there's a non-computer control, which we call it a manual system, which would be the EC5B. In this case, the EC5C, which is the C at the end, is computer control, and the B will be like a base for manual unit. So we can provide both options for you in the case you consider the computer control a very advanced system for maybe your entry-level students to understand how to, manipulate all those data. Remember, the more access to all this data on the readings from the sensors, that will make it like higher engineering students or research But if you want an entry level, maybe the manual system will also work perfectly. The only difference, like I said before, it doesn't have access to the computer, it doesn't have the software, but you will have like a little screen, a display on the interface box in which you can have some readings of what you're getting from there. Okay. With that being said, I think this is pretty much our compact system that fuel cells we normally recommend or suggest universities and technical colleges, and obviously some technical high schools for students to understand the process. Uh, the system requires, like I said before, not only the bottle with H2 with hydrogen, but you will also require in the case you don't have it in your lab, we can also provide it with the unit with an additional, as an additional element. It would be the electrolyzer for you to recharge that particular bottle, regardless the size. Obviously, it will take longer if it's a bigger one, depending on the type of electrolyzer. It will be taking longer for to recharge, and or less depending on on all the technical specs. Okay. Once again, please do not hesitate to contact us. I'll be more than happy to answer all the questions, or maybe one of our colleagues, whoever is in your region, just send us an email or send us write your questions under chat, and just let us know where you're contacting us from. Because remember, we cover pretty much the entire world, but we have people responsible for those areas. So depending on the areas that our sales manager from that particular area will contact you, and will be and be more than happy to answer all your questions. Like I said, this is just a brief explanation about the unit, about what it does. If you're interested in a quote, please send us an email. Let us know the end customer. I'll be more than happy to answer back with all the detailed information. If you want more additional tech specs related with the electrolyzers, the capacity of the different bottles that we provide, anything related with the type of exercises that we can perform with this unit, please do not hesitate to contact us or go into the website, and just on the search bar you can just type 5C, I'm sorry, EC5C, and you will download the catalog with all the technical specs about the unit. Okay. Well, thank you very much for joining us. It has been a pleasure, and I hope you have enjoyed this webinar. Thank you. Thank you very much for your joining us.